Hello, my name is Cameron, and today I'm going to be sharing my transition and detransition story. I just want to preface this by saying everybody's journey is different. Everybody's transition and detransition, if they do detransition, is different. And so please take that into consideration when listening to my story. And yeah, also this is a safe space, so please no hate comments or anything. They're not beneficial to anybody. So if you see me looking down, I have my computer open and I do have some paper notes. So let's just hop right into it. So for 2 years, I identified as female to male, transgender, and towards the end of that time, I did identify as non-binary, and I went by he, they pronouns. I'm biologically female, and I now identify as female. When I was 12, I started drinking, vaping, cursing, and I did develop a porn addiction. I was a pretty lonely child. I am the youngest of 4 siblings, but my closest in age sister is 5 years older than me, so it was really lonely. Not physically lonely, but like mentally lonely. And so I didn't have a lot of friends at school. I'm pretty socially awkward. So I started drinking, vaping, cussing because it made me feel cool. I didn't really have any friends. I was like a little too weird for like the popular kids, but a little too popular for like the weird kids. And I just felt like I didn't really have anybody. And I would ask God like why I wasn't normal and why couldn't I just like fit in. And this led me to find solace in a very inviting community, the LGBT community. I'm from the South, so like I'd heard the term gay before, but it was mostly used in a kind of slang or slur type manner. But I was a really big fan of the band Queen. Their lead singer is Freddie Mercury, and I became obsessed with him in middle school. And literally, like, I would wear like the white tank top and the gold armband. Like, I made a gold armband and wore it to school. Like, it was like underneath my clothes and everything. No wonder I didn't have any friends. But he became almost like an idol to me, and I think that kind of reduced some of the stigma around the LGBT community in my mind. So it made me a lot more open to the invitation. Unbeknownst to anybody, I would stay up at night, watch YouTube videos that related to the LGBTQ community, and I craved that sense of community because in the comments and everything, it was people being like, I support you, I'm here for you, whoa, you go, you know, like, I'm so proud. And it was something I didn't really have a lot of, and I craved that. In the second semester of my freshman year, so I was 14, and it was 2020. So before school let out, I came out as a lesbian to a few of my friends. I started to dress masculine, I changed my posture, mannerisms, things like that, and started to appear less feminine, and I would also do vocal training to lower my voice. Looking back, I can confidently say I was never actually attracted to women, but I think I was like envious of their appearance because I was always just a little chunky, short little girl, and the women that I was fond of would be women like Zendaya or Megan Fox that are absolutely stunning, and I still believe that they're stunning, but in my brain I couldn't differentiate attraction and envy. I couldn't, like, I was like, do I want to be with her or do I want to look like her? I couldn't tell the difference. But once lockdown was in full swing, that was when my mental health started to rapidly decline. I had been diagnosed with anxiety and depression when I was 12 or 13. I think I was 13 at that point. But now, at this point, it was worse than ever. And I was basically trapped in a room, but with nothing but my own thoughts. Every social media app I had was filled with gay topics and influencers, and And they displayed how wonderful and freeing and uniting it was to be gay or trans. But at this point, I didn't feel like a lesbian. But that's when I stumbled upon female to male transgender. So in June of 2020, I got rid of all of my girl clothes and I bought boy clothes and cut all my hair off. This was basically, most of this was done under my parents' nose. It was really easy to go undetected for a little bit. I mean, obviously my parents noticed small changes in my appearance, but the big kicker was when I told them I wanted to get my hair cut. But I came out to them and eventually they let me. My mom was really hesitant and my dad was pretty quiet most of the time. So even though on the outside I was happy now, I had short hair, I was dressing masculine, I was so depressed. I was self-harming, poking myself with needles, giving myself stick and pokes. I still have stick and pokes that I like and scars that I'm pretty ashamed of. And I see them on the daily, but I just have to accept it, live with it, and it is what it is. So I was taking immense amount of pills, medications that weren't prescribed to me. I was still drinking and my porn addiction was worse than ever. My parents knew I needed help, and so they set me up with a therapist, but the therapist really wasn't any help at all. He did affirm my identity and sexual orientation. I think at this time I was identifying as bisexual, and he was proud of me for expressing my true self. On December 6th, 2020, I did attempt to take my life. November 15th, 9 days after my attempt, I was planning to try again, and I wrote a suicide letter. And I remember being home alone and in my room, and I went downstairs to write a letter. I started writing, and when I got done writing and I was about to head back upstairs to follow through with my plans, my mom got home, and I knew I couldn't do it now that my mom was home. And I often wonder what would have happened if my mom would have stayed in town for 10-15 more minutes. Would I still be here? And that's something that's difficult to think about. But then in December of 2020, I was admitted into a psychiatric facility for a week. And most of the other patients there were also teenage girls struggling with their gender and their sexuality. And so I realized like I wasn't the only one struggling, because I felt really alone. All these people were having, on social media it was glamorized and it was shown as this beautiful thing and they were having the time of their life, but I was over here struggling really hard. And so it was really it was good to see that there are people out there that were just like me and were struggling too. And then in 2021, my sexual deviance grew rapidly. I was trading pictures and watching porn multiple times a day, engaging in acts with females and males. I would continue to chase after girls despite not really being attracted to them. I think it was just like playing the part type thing, and it helped me feel more masculine because of stereotypes. Men chase after the women, so if I was going to be a man, I had to chase after the women. I no longer had the like handful of friends that I once had. The little amount that I did have were scared off, and the few that I made were also struggling with the same things I was struggling with. And in the summer of 2021, I started going to parties every weekend. These parties would include other gay people, alcohol, vaping, spin the bottle, and were overall very sexual in nature. And during that time, I was very, very angry with everyone around me. My mom and I fought almost every day. I had completely denounced God and my relationship with him. You know, if he was so high and mighty, then why wasn't I born a boy, and why was I going through all this pain and suffering? Why would he do that to someone that he loves? I decided to come out once more. And instead of being female to male transgender, I said that I was bisexual and non-binary. So instead of being referred to with he, him pronouns that my friends were using, I said I wanted he, they. But this even confused my gay friends because, like I said, I'm from the South, so I hadn't really made it here yet, the they pronouns. And so that sense of community I once had was starting to fall apart, because now even the friends I did have didn't like me anymore. I had no true friends, no accepting family members, and no relationship with God. In November of 2021, I was suspended from school for vaping at school. And this is a letter I wrote whenever I got suspended. I'm hurting. I've been hurting for a while now. And don't say, why didn't you talk to us? Because I have. I have talked. My cries for help were sobs. My I'm fine were fake. My tears rolling down my cheeks as I go to sleep were normal. I noticed a problem when my face was dry. Had I run out of tears? Is the rain gone? Am I finally happy and content? The answer was no. I'd stopped crying because I had become so accustomed to the comments and gestures that I just didn't feel them anymore. But then one day the feeling came back. The sunken despair, hopelessness feeling came back. I longed for the days of numbness, the days of no rain and dry faces. However, this time came flood, the rain heavier, my face wetter, my soul in despair. I longed for the numbness I had once had. Alcohol was a temporary fix. Nicotine was even shorter. I'd put holes in my skin to let the darkness escape, but it didn't work. Nothing works. I will forever be broken, hurting, pained. So that's deep and dark, but it is the reality of the way I felt during that time. So when I got suspended, it was the week of Thanksgiving break. So it wasn't just like 3 days off. It was basically like 2 weeks because I had Thanksgiving break plus my suspension. And my parents, since they were obviously mad at me, they took away my phone. So I had no contact with all the friends I still had. But this honestly was a blessing in disguise, being isolated, because it gave me the time to process the last 2 years of my life up until this point. In the following week, I was drugged to church. I hadn't been to church in a while. Like I said, at this point, I had no relationship with God. And being from the South, I was raised in church. I never had like a deep relationship with him. So my sister, she was like, y'all need to bring Cameron to the church. I think it'll help her. And the preacher just so happened to be addressing LGBT issues, specifically the transgender community, and he didn't even know that I was there and any of my problems. It's a pretty big church, about 300 folks maybe. So like, he preached that just because you've made your mind up doesn't mean that's how it has to be, you know, and God has a plan. Just because I remember thinking, whenever I first decided to transition, my mother asked me, she said, what are you going to do if you change your mind, but you're so consumed in your lifestyle that it feels impossible to revert back? And I felt like that. Whenever I started my detransition, it was hard because I'd been such a way for so long that it had become the new normal, and I didn't remember what life was like beforehand. And those ages 14, 15, 16 are so vital in your development, because like there's so much difference between a 13-year-old and a 17-year-old. They're so different. And when I started detransitioning, my mindset, last time I was a girl, or I acted like a girl, was when I was 13. So as a 17-year-old, 16, 17-year-old, when I was detransitioning, I was still a 13-year-old girl. And it's very difficult. I still struggle with some of the repercussions of it. I do find myself being delayed compared to others my age. Anyway, sorry, back to the church service. I left the service bawling my eyes out. And so I think I was just so tired of the pain and misery that I was going through. And I was baptized 4 months later. And now it's been 2 years since then. And I'm fully confident in the female body that God gave me. And just know it's never too late to turn your life around. And, God left the 99 to find me. And I'm free of the burden of alcoholism, vaping, self-harm, suicidal thoughts, sexual immorality, porn addiction, gender confusion. And it's something that, it is a true struggle. It is something people who say, oh, it's not, it is real. It's 100% real. I think being gay and being thinking that you're trans, that's a real feeling, because I felt it and I was convinced. But I also learned that it wasn't the right thing for me. During that time, I was also, when I was 2018 or 19, I was also sexually assaulted. And I think that may have had something to do with me having that sort of disassociation with my female body. And that could have been an influence for it. Every day, whenever I think back, I find little nuggets of information that help me link everything together to see, where did this source from? What originated these thoughts in my mind that I wasn't destined to be a girl. Because that's not just something you wake up and decide. And it was something I struggled with for a while before I even acted on it and started changing my appearance. Now, I never did anything medical. I never medically transitioned, so I never took testosterone, and I never had any surgeries or anything. I think if I was older, I definitely would have. 100% I would have. But since I was young, those wasn't really an option for me. And I'm honestly kind of grateful. But if you have any questions or anything, please leave those in the comments below. I would love to share more. This is something that's really important to me, something that impacted my life for a very long time. But yeah, so if you have any questions or any advice or anything, please leave those in the comments and I'll get to them. But yeah, thanks so much. So here are a few pictures from that time. This is me with my Freddie Mercury obsession. And then this was me after my haircut. I did get a perm. And one thing about this is you can tell in most of these pictures during this time, I'm not smiling very much. I'm making a pretty, straight face. There's me. You can kind of see my style. I wore masculine clothes. This is the only picture I have where I was actually kind of smiling. And this was me a few months later at my junior prom. So